Crossovers are awesome. Everyone knows that. But they should still serve a sense of purpose.
Herb, are you expecting someone?
Not them.
Also, I realized since I'm talking about crossovers in a video already featuring a ton of different cartoons, you already know that copyright is not gonna hold back. I'll be surprised if, y'all are still watching past this intro point and it hasn't already been blocked. So because of that, right, could y'all subscribe and like and watch all the way through, because I'm going to give you my opinion, right, on the best cartoon crossovers ever, because believe it or not, there are many of them. And when worlds collide, you might just realize, and these crossovers were, these episodes featuring the crossovers were them for me, so let's get into it. Timmy Jimmy Power Hour to be the one of its kind, if that's even a phrase. And with that being said, you would imagine that I would also pick the first in the trilogy that would end up being the Timmy Jimmy Power Hour series to pick as the best one of them all, because you know what they say, nothing beats the original, do they? Because I personally think that the second movie in the trilogy was the best. The Timmy Jimmy Power Hour 2 is undoubtedly the most criminally underrated, because it takes all the aspects of the first special and adds onto it. We get to see more of Jimmy's side of the world, that being Retroville. And don't worry, we still get all the wacky and zany adventures. And though I will admit it's a little nightmarish and uncanny valley-ish at times because of that, I feel like they had a lot more of an opportunity to work off each other by adding new characters, new animation. And with that being said, given that's a crossover, you see the most random of characters interact. Like Jordan versus Calamitous literally fuse into a single body. And if that isn't already weird enough, we get to see that form in the 3D world. Strange as fuck. But it's for that reason that I feel like, I personally at least think it's better than the original, because it takes everything that the original did right and expands upon it by a lot. And it doesn't at all feel like they're at all running out of ideas. It's like one after another, countless, references and jokes and inside jokes to each of their respective. And again, since it is a sequel to the original crossover, they actually reference each other like they already know each other. So you don't waste any time, seeing the characters just trying to get to know each other, because they already did. So this movie specifically, the sequel, has a lot more time and room to fill it up with a lot of funny jokes and adventures. I remember when Timmy even gives Sheen and all of Jimmy's friends Cosmo Wanda, but then they actually suffer from wish overload and too much Morgan Freeman. So random, bro. But I love it. And which is, you gotta love the title, the name of the movie itself being When Nerds Collide, and I pictured it anyway. The Simpsons guy is a very, very strange crossover, but one that many of us fans of The Simpsons or Family Guy, or both, were begging to happen for the longest time. Don't lie. Even up when this episode was finally released in 2014, we loved it. Although, as a obviously Simpsons fan, especially more in comparison to Family Guy, which is probably weird in and of itself to say, because I would even think that Family Guy is probably way more popular than The Simpsons at this point, despite the fact that it was literally, as some people would even state, a direct ripoff of The Simpsons. So you would think that this episode would lead to a lot of puns of that, and there are, but the main complaint that many people seem to have, and one that I can kind of even attest and agree with, is the fact that despite the fact that the two shows are downright fucking identical, to say the least, when it comes to their formulas and the setups and the families, everything. I mean, the whole court scene literally shows each other's doppelgangers. But it's also really cool at the same time seeing the animations combined, because at the same time, these two shows are still pretty distinct in big ways, like the animation. Which is one thing I don't think gets mentioned a lot. It's really impressive to see these two shows kind of melt together with the animation styles. But if only the same could be said for the fucking styles of humor, because god damn, they do not mix. The dark humor with Simpsons was already kind of awkward and just downright uncomfortable whenever it did happen in The Simpsons, but it was rare. So to have essentially a whole entire, of course, Family Guy episode, have The Simpsons portrayed in this light was also kind of pretty disturbing, the car wash scene in particular. I mean, I don't even know if any other actual Family Guy fans found this funny more than it was disgusting, but it could become too much. But for the most part, you gotta understand that what it was a crossover between The Simpsons and Family Guy, and that's exactly what we got. Although I will say, say, it was more like seeing The Simpsons warped through a Family Guy lens. Will we ever get another one of these crossovers between these two series? No. And hopefully, honestly, we never do. Grim Adventures of the Codenamed Kids Next Door. This crossover doesn't get talked about a lot, and in all honesty, when it does get talked about, it only seems to get shat on. Unjustifiably, because in my opinion, again, I really realized I should have shown myself with this again, but guys, it just takes a lot of time and effort. But I'm just going to tell you the main thing that y'all should really take away from this video, and more specifically this pick in general, and that's that this crossover between the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy and Codenamed Kids Next Door, although it may seem random on the surface, actually works really well and made for a very funny episode for both series in general. I honestly don't even know which episode this is supposed to be for each of their respective series, but what I do know is that the episode is centered around Billy getting in trouble and the Codenamed Kids Next Door having to free Billy from using his dad's pants, and so he also doesn't find out. I also don't want to spoil the ending, but it's hilarious. And the whole interactions between the characters from both of their series, whether it be number 1 in Mandy or number 1 in Grimm, or just seeing number 5 in Mandy, and really everyone interact with each other. It was pretty cool to see. And who could forget the ending credits sequence with the parodies of each of their respective shows that were airing on Cartoon Network at the time. You also get to see a handful of cool cameos from the likes of Ed, Edd n Eddy and, even the Powerpuff Girls, though they just get mentioned. I just thought it was still pretty funny. I don't think it's definitely worth it being hated on. It's pretty fitting and, in my opinion, again, looking back at it, pretty funny crossover between the two series that works surprisingly well, despite how random it seemed from just name it alone. Name it all together, it's like, it's like, yeah, something. Hercules and the Arabian Night. That title alone would make me curious, not gonna lie. But this crossover is pretty underrated and doesn't get talked about a lot. Although it seems basic on the surface, featuring a crossover between Hercules, the Disney series, and the Aladdin series, which is also Disney, obviously. It obviously and kind of naturally goes hand in hand. Jafar teams up with Hades to set up a plan to pin Hercules against Aladdin, but obviously they both realize the truth and instead decide to team up to defeat Jafar and Hades. So we get a cool little crossover between the whole entire Hercules and Aladdin franchises, in the typical Disney style since they were both created by Disney. So it's really interesting and fitting, to say the least. And the fact that it's still, again, supposed to be a crossover between each of their respective series, honestly, in my opinion at least, makes it all the more impressive how natural they were able to make it feel to both series. I mean, I don't even know what episode this is for their series. Is this an episode of the Aladdin series or the Hercules series? I don't even know. I literally don't. I think the Hercules series, but let's just move on. Johnny Doobie-Doo is an episode of Scooby-Doo and Johnny Bravo, because why the fuck not? Being one of the earliest shows to put Cartoon Network on the map, it's no surprise that these two series, although seeming random and unconnected at first, actually made for a very funny episode. Now, say what you want about the Scooby-Doo franchise, whether it's long overstayed its welcome, whether you love it or hate it, or whatever your opinions are on it, you can't deny it's a timeless classic that, admittedly has become stale with the formula going over half a century. And who would have thought that just bringing a character like Johnny Bravo, who, although today would probably get cancelled, just like that, would provide and make an episode so much more enjoyable and funny. I especially like the scenes like when Johnny Bravo and the gang are running from the monsters, but he still finds time to look at himself in the mirror. Oh dear God, it just works out all well with the final twist ending, also adding and being like a cherry on top, really. I don't think I've ever laughed this hard at a Scooby-Doo short in my life. Not even kidding. Not like I've seen that many to begin with, at least, again, remember. But hey, no shame to the Scooby-Doo franchise. It's still going for a reason, but, even if it is kind of shat on. I mean, remember that Velma series? Oh, we don't talk about that shit. But also, it's worth noting that the two animations, although depending on each of their respective franchises do look similar off the bat, work together very well. Even the colors are very similar. I never noticed that. It's almost like they were drawn in the same exact style.